everything is centralized around the office of the president. That's why tiri kuti ngativote zvine mutsindo 2023 tibvise nyaya yekuti minister welocal government ndiye meya wemameya. Toda kuti meya asarudzwe aite executive mayor. Vanhu vane right to recall him kana achinge aita corruption, achinge atadza. Ndozvatinoda kuona munyika muno.
Zimbabwe marches to the March 26 by-election. There's already activity in the country. Rallies are going on, and candidates who are going to be running for these elections are on the road, making sure that they win the hearts and minds of people of Zimbabwe. But in the midst of this, there is a legal application that has been put at the Constitutional Court. It seeks to stop all this excitement, craziness, or madness. The application before the Constitutional Court is declaring that it seeks to have the court declare that these by-elections are illegal, because President Emmerson Mnangagwa was mandated by the Constitution to call for these elections within 90 days of the seats falling vacant. He did not do so. He violated the Constitution, and therefore should not be allowed to have a second bite of the cherry by declaring by-elections unconstitutional. For Zimbabweans, they've approached the Constitutional Court. And with me here on the Free Talk, the prime social and current affairs program in the country, we are joined by one of the litigants who's going to talk to us through that application. Why the application? Who is behind the application? What do they seek to achieve? Here on this, the Free Talk, with me, your host, as usual, Dara Blessed Mhlanga. We'll be back in a few moments to get into detail. Welcome back to the Free Talk, and in studio this evening I am joined by Tapera Sengweni. Now Tapera Sengweni is a lawyer by profession and is the leading litigant in the bid to stop the by-elections, and he joins me here in studio to discuss his application and why the application. Thank you very much, Mr. Tapera Sengweni, the learned colleague, for joining us here on the Free Talk.
Thank you, Dara. Thank you, Divyas.
Amazing. Now, we are here discussing the constitutional application that you have put before the Constitutional Court. Now, maybe just to open up, just tell us the nature of that application and what it seeks to achieve.
Well, the application is in terms of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Section 167, basically, which says that a court may make a determination if Parliament or the President has failed to abide by its provisions. So basically the application is because in our view, or in the view of me and the other three litigants, President Mnangagwa failed to abide with the section 158 and 159 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. The two sections basically say that in the event of a vacancy in both the National Assembly or in Parliament and the local authorities, the President shall proclaim dates of elections. But those dates shall be such that polling shall happen within 90 days of the vacancy. Now, we have the President proclaiming the by-elections on the 24th of December. Or
in January, he proclaimed in January.
In January. By the time the President proclaimed those election dates, in most cases, the vacancies had lasted more than 200 days. Some were over a year old. His nomination quote, the nomination quote that then said following the proclamations, was so out of time that we thought it prudent to approach the Constitutional Court. Yes.
Yeah. You talk of this bid to stop the by-elections. Why did you not get worried when 90 days passed before by-elections were proclaimed?
Now the 90 days have passed. I don't understand your question. Are you saying why did I not react at the 90-day stroke?
Yes. Because you are talking about a constitutional violation. The constitutional violation that started was failing to proclaim by-elections in 90 days. Yes. Why did you sit down and not worry about it?
Because the President had chosen not to proclaim the election dates.
And that was a violation of the Constitution?
Yeah, perhaps it was. So many, like all Zimbabweans, I let it pass.
So why are you concerned about this one and not the first? That is my question.
This particular violation is what struck me as worth approaching the Constitutional Court.
Are you aware that there was an application, there is an application before the High Court that sought to have the by-elections happen, and to date that judgment has not been issued?
I'm not privy to that application.
That was put before the courts by Tendai Bitin as the lead lawyer, where they were actually challenging the abeyance of the holding in abeyance of the by-elections in violation of the Constitution.
Well, like I said, I was not aware of that application.
Does that change your mind in this instance, if now that you are aware of it?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I'm happy if Tendai Bit challenged the failure to hold by-elections. I'm also equally happy that I've challenged the proclamation of an illegal election.
But does this not affect democracy, this challenge that people should not be represented in Parliament or be led by representatives of their choice, both in Parliament and in Council?
Well, I'm not excited or excitable by the mention of democracy, Mr. Dai. Democracy is a beautiful bird that's in the sky. It depends really on how you view it. But my analysis of Zimbabwe's parliament, I'm sorry to say, my rating of it is very low, very, very low. I have said in the application that the main purpose of Zimbabwe's parliament is to enact national legislation. And in enacting national legislation, it does not matter that there are 2 or 100 MPs in parliament. National legislation can still be enacted. So the shortage of 28 MPs in parliament does not essentially reduce or subtract from its quality. That is my view.
So, if we use that logic, then we could just basically say that we don't even need the MPs in Parliament.
I think you are following me. You are following me properly. Is Parliament the panacea to governance? Is it the alpha and omega of democracy? I don't think so. In fact, you appreciate that in other countries, general elections are held, parties contest, and then parties simply pick on their membership to then represent certain constituencies or to make the numbers to Parliament. So you don't have to come from Mkoba, for example, to represent people in Mkoba. You can still represent people in Mkoba even if you are coming from Unguza.
How would you know their needs? How would you understand what they need when you don't live with them?
You appreciate that most MPs don't even stay in the constituencies that they purport to represent. If you do your research correctly, most MPs do not stay in their constituencies. So how are they representing them?
I know Amos Shibaya stays in Mkoba, he was recalled. I know Ebmochidziwa stays in Highfield, he was recalled. I know Settlement Chikwinya stays in Kwekwe, he was recalled. I know I know a number of them, those that were recalled, actually stay in the constituencies that they were recalled from. Tendai Biti, for instance.
I don't think you are correct, Mr. Clark. With all due respect, I don't think you are correct. Does Settlement Chikwinya stay in Bizo?
He stays in Kwekwe. I said Kwekwe.
But he represents Bizo.
Yes.
Yes. So my point exactly is you don't need to stay in the constituency to represent or to know the needs of that particular constituency. You can go and find out the needs of the people from wherever you stay. Yeah. So, yeah, for a long time, if you study the history of politics in Zimbabwe, for a long time, the Gokwe constituencies were represented by people from Harare. And it worked fine, in my view.
But it was their person of choice, was it not?
No, it was not. It was the political party that was providing them candidates from Harare.
But they voted for that person, that is the point. Because the choice then is, there was an election, people took the ballot, put an X on that particular person for that person to be declared the winner. Whether that person was coming from Mars or from the moon,
yes,
that person was their representative of choice as enshrined by the Constitution, is it not?
I agree with you.
And your application seeks to say that the Constitution is wrong by giving people the right to choose a representative of their choice.
No, you are wrong. The application says when the president proclaimed the elections, time had elapsed. Only.
You say that in your application, when I read it, it said that you don't have to have an MP in Kopa for Parliament to function.
That is correct.
So it basically says the people of Mkopa should not have the right to choose a representative of their choice to be in Parliament because someone from Umguza can do it.
Are you concerned with the substance of an MP representation, or you are concerned with the excitement of voters when they vote for the particular MP?
I'm concerned about the constitutional aspect because you are challenging the constitutional aspect.
What?
And the constitutional aspects give people the right to be represented by a person of their choice, which you want to take away.
I think you are incorrect. The Constitution of Zimbabwe is more than 300 provisions. I approached the Constitutional Court because two of those provisions had been breached. Section 158 and 159 of the Constitution. Only those two were breached. The president failed to proclaim election dates such that the polling would happen within 90 days of the vacancy. Basically, that's my application. Yes.
But you want to take away, my question is, you want to take away the right of those people in Mkopa to be represented. Because the Constitution provides them that right to be represented. So if these by-elections do not happen, that right is taken away. Is that not a fact?
The people of Mkoba have no right or obligation to participate in an illegal election. The constitution does not entitle anyone to any illegal or illegality. That is my point. If, according to my submissions, if the proclamations by the presidents were out of time and therefore unconstitutional, it means the people of Mkoba are not entitled to that by-election.
Wouldn't it be more sensible to say that the president violated his oath to office to uphold the constitution? So therefore he's not fit to be the president, other than trying to deny the people of Zimbabwe the right to elect their own representatives based on an error by a person who swore to uphold the constitution.
No. As I said, the constitution has a lot of provisions. The president failed to uphold 2 of those provisions. And my application is limited to that deed. Or that deed or omission. Only. I am not so sure if it would amount to him being unfit to hold the office of president. If he missed 1 or 2 provisions of the constitution, I don't think any court of law would agree with you that therefore he is unfit to hold the office of president. And I've approached the court of law, so I wouldn't take to a court of law evening, tales.
Reportage in the media has said that this attempt to stop elections is basically something that is being engineered by the MDC Alliance president because he's afraid of this by-election.
I would not be able to answer for the MDCT or its president, but I have not met them in a very long time. I made my own assessment as Sengweni, of course benefiting from the background of a legal training, and I came to the conclusion that the president of Zimbabwe had failed to fulfill section 158 and 159 of the constitution.
But you're a member of the MDCT. You're actually a legal advisor in the MDCT.
I was.
What happened?
I left in December 2021.
Would you care to shed light why you left?
No.
Some know, including myself, that you were close to the MDCT president. Actual fact, you've advised him legally for a very long time. And Alex Magaisa, writing in his big Saturday read, quotes a number of things. That the first is that the president of the MDC, Douglas Mwonzora, actually approached President Emmerson Mnangagwa seeking to block these elections. And you're coming from that closeness with Douglas Mwonzora and having been a legal advisor of the MDCT. How do you assure the nation that you are not doing this to protect political legacies and political friendships with Douglas Mwonzora?
I got employed by the MDC in, I think, February of 2015. And at that time, Douglas Mwonzora was the Secretary General of the MDC. And you appreciate that members of staff fall under the administration of the Secretary General. So yes, I know Douglas. What I can say is that this application is not informed by Douglas Mwonzora. It is not motivated by him. It is not financed by anyone. If anything, perhaps the other 3 litigants are benefiting from my privileged knowledge of the law. But otherwise, there is no role for Douglas Mwonzora in this application. I'm not even sure if he supports it or not. Yes. About what Alex Magaisa said, I'm sorry, I will not be able to comment. I don't know what Alex Magaisa said. I don't read his articles. I don't find them relevant for Zimbabwe.
Some say when you find the tortoise on a fence post, you must try and find how it got there.
Do I look like a tortoise? Do I look like a tortoise? In your view, I am a qualified lawyer. I have practiced law in this country for over 10 years. I believe I have acquitted myself better than a lot of other lawyers, maybe including Alex Magaisa. I don't know if he has ever practiced law in Zimbabwe, but to the best of my knowledge, being a lawyer or a lecturer in Kent does not mean that you know Zimbabwean law. So I don't subscribe to most of his views. I'm in Zimbabwe at the moment. Alex is in Kent. I can speak more authoritatively about Zimbabwe than Alex. So allow me to speak. I have approached the Zimbabwean Constitutional Court because I deem it necessary. I have already said that it is basically to say that the president failed to fulfill a constitutional obligation. But in my application, I went further to even put political statements that in my view, we don't need these by-elections at all. Because this country is struggling with its economy, because we are 16 months from the general elections, because we have extra MPs in parliament. We have the MPs called PR, proportional representative MPs. There are 60 women in parliament who don't have constituencies to superintend. Why doesn't parliament become creative and assign those women to those constituencies that have been orphaned, so to speak?
But they are not the representatives of choice for those particular constituencies, are they?
Does it matter?
Does it not?
What is important is that they can represent the views of those people. It doesn't really matter. I've already given you an example of jurisdictions where people vote for parties and then parties just pick representatives of constituencies.
But that's not, Zimbabwe is not that jurisdiction, it's got its law, which I'm sure you're a stickler of law. This is why you're in the Constitutional Court, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
And according to the Zimbabwean law, the time to hold by-elections is expired.
So what is the solution?
We go back to that constitution and see if it provides a solution. If it doesn't, we go back to the legislative arms of government and hear if there is a suggested solution.
If I'm going to bring this to a layman's term,
yes,
we are supposed to have lunch at 1 p.m.
Yes.
But the person who's supposed to give you lunch does not do so and brings it at 2. Your argument is the person who was supposed to eat at 1 and is starving should not be given lunch at 2 because the person who was supposed to feed them failed to do that.
Unfortunately, your analog is inapplicable to the administration or to the upholding of a national constitution. You see, by elections, there's nothing naturally called a by-election. By-election is a creation of the constitution. And what the constitution calls by-election is a replacement election called for by the president within 90 days. Why the constitution said 90 days is because of a certain reasoning. In my view, it is the intention of the constitution that the replacement take place whilst the people still have memories of the vacancies or of the previous MP. They are still in the within memory of the MP who was lost or recalled. Therefore, they get into the election with that memory. In my view, that is the intention of the constitution. I may, however, be wrong. Now, You have the president calling something that he calls by-elections 2 years later. In my view, they are not by-elections.
But we have had by-elections which have been called beyond the 90 days in Zimbabwe.
I'm not aware.
The by-election of Chilumanzi, Zimbabwe, when President Emerson Mnangagwa, then the MP of Chilumanzi, Zimbabwe, was promoted to be the vice president of the Republic of Zimbabwe.
How long was the delay? I'm not aware.
It was over 90 days until an opinion was put that the vice president cannot be, and that opinion was from Alex Magaisa, cannot be a member of parliament, and therefore there was need to have a by-election in Chilumanzi, Zimbabwe. And it was already after 90 days, and that election was held. You didn't challenge it.
I'm not going to challenge every breach of Zimbabwe's constitution.
So if I accuse you of doing this specifically to benefit Douglas Mwonzora, because then there was no Douglas Mwonzora, that's why you kept quiet. What would you say?
Why are you so sure that this will benefit only Douglas Mwonzora? Where are you getting his name from? In my view, to benefit Zimbabweans, Zimbabweans are going to be to enjoy a lot of resources that were going to be wasted in conducting an illegal election. It is Zimbabweans who benefit from the saving of Zimbabwe's resources. That is my view.
Tell me what they have been benefiting for the past 200 days when the elections were not held. That they would benefit now.
The resources, Mr. Dar, the resources. You see, if I'm correct, ZEC estimates that it needs about 23 billion just to run these by-elections. 23 billion taken from Zimbabwe's economy will be felt by everyone, including the street kid in Harare. That is my reasoning.
So we should forgo democracy because it's expensive.
Democracy includes the constitution. And if the constitution has been breached, democracy will demand that the breach be challenged.
What is the remedy for that you seek in the breach of the constitution, which does not involve punishing the people who are being disadvantaged?
There is no people who are being disadvantaged, in my view. No one is going to be disadvantaged by not holding by-elections.
We have spoken to people. We have been in Koba, we have been in Highfields, we have been in Airport, and they say they want these by-elections. And they say that they have been disadvantaged by not being able to have a member of parliament, or a councillor for that matter, who goes to council and say, I have problems in my ward of A, B, C, D.
I think you are being too simplistic, Mr. Dara. I have been avoiding commenting on particular persons. But let's take Mugabe for instance. If Amos Chibaya was to return to parliament, this will be his 22nd year. I'm sure the same applies to a couple of other contestants. Tell me something that an MP would be able to do differently this year than he has been doing for the past 21 years. In my view, there is no value. In my view, this sentiment for by-elections is being pushed by the candidates who want to return to the feeding trough. Simple. There is no benefit to Zimbabwe to return Amos Chibaya or perhaps Tendai Biti to parliament. They have been in parliament for long enough. If they were going to be effective, if they were going to be effective to the people they serve, they would have been effective already. So if they were commodities, I would think they have expired.
So in essence, you're saying those who have served parliament or government for a very long time are useless?
In essence, I'm saying Zimbabwe's parliament will not miss the 28 MPs who are not in parliament today.
But their constituents?
Their constituencies will also not miss them. I'm aware that you may have spoken to individuals who may have their own interests in the by-election. You see, the process of election creates a certain economy of itself. The campaign, the few jobs, the few grains of food that fall under the table, the bread, the drinks, the beer even. And people, I want to defend by-elections because they want that. No, they're not concerned about the effect or the effectiveness of an MP or whether it makes sense to go to by-elections. No. They want the process of campaign because it benefits them. Politicians, for instance, what do they do if there are no elections? What do the politicians do when there are no elections? They have nothing to do. So when there are by-elections, politicians suddenly are useful. Huh? They are traveling all over the country, from here to Muguza, from here to Blawayo, from here to Mwonzora. They got a little campaign for by-elections. They are just finding something exciting to do with their lives. But I don't think it benefits Zimbabwe. What is in it for us? What is in it for teachers? What is in it for nurses? Those people are underpaid. They are struggling with their lives. Kids are not going to school. Huh? The whole of Zimbabwe is suffering because we don't have resources. And we have a democratic government committing $23 billion to elect people who will be in parliament for less than 10 months before parliament
But
dissolves.
that crisis was caused by your president.
Which is my president?
Douglas Mwonzora, what do you call it?
You see, you oversimplify political parties and how they function, Mr. President.
People are simple.
Yes.
And on this program, we want things to be simple so that the layman on the street understands.
Yeah, let me express it this way. Douglas Mwonzora is not answerable to me on a day-to-day basis. Huh? He is the president of a party to which I belong. But I may not even see him for a year or two or three. I'm privileged in that I was working at the party headquarters until December. So I got to see him often. But can you imagine there's an MDC candidate in Budiriro who may not have ever met Douglas Mwonzora. So what decisions he made or did not make is entirely up to him. I will not be able to answer for him.
But I'm not saying answer for him. I'm saying that your party is the one that caused this, and you are coming here to say that this is very expensive, it is going to cost this nation. But this is a constitutional obligation that is supposed to be followed. And there was a reason that it was not followed, which is COVID-19. And there was a statutory instrument of law that was put in place to ensure that this happens.
Mr. Dara, going to parliament in Zimbabwe is essentially regulated by the law of agents. If you look at the section 129K of the Constitution, that section is simply embedding a principle of the law of agents that has always existed in our Roman Dutch law, or common law, so to speak. If you are sent to parliament by your political party, you are obliged to represent that political party, or you be recalled. It's as simple as that. That is the law. So, if certain members of parliament were sent to parliament by their political parties, and got so excited by parliament that they forgot that they were agents of their political parties, they were fit and proper to be recalled. I'll go to the other issues that you raised. The respondents in my application, I believe the main respondents is basically the president of this country and ZAC. They have not yet filed their notice of opposition. I would be very careful to respond to your issues of COVID-19 and your issues of statutory instruments, because this matter is still pending before the courts. But yeah, some of your views are totally wrong. That's all I can say. In the eyes of the law, your views about the effect of COVID-19 and that statutory instrument, your views are wrong.
No, they're not my views. I am telling you what happened. They're not views. There was a statutory instrument proclaimed through the Office of the Vice President and Minister of Health. And ZEC said it would not do anything because of that statutory instrument. So it's not a view, it's a fact.
I have a question for you, Mr. Dar. does a statutory instrument amend a national constitution?
You are the lawyer.
You see, this is why I say your views, even the views of that Minister of Health who may have proclaimed the statutory instrument, in the event that they thought the statutory instrument would amend the constitution, their views would also be wrong.
And yet you watched that and left it until the people were given an opportunity to correct an illegality, and you want to add an illegality on top of another.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
But you are asking that to happen.
No.
You are asking the failure to proclaim by-elections to remain so that you take away the rights of the people to get a representative of their choice.
I have already given you my view about this representative of their choice phrase. I've already given you my view on it. But what I'm essentially doing is I am seeking that the court help the president in appreciating the provisions of the constitution regarding by-elections. That is basically what I'm seeking. It may be so that there are other ripple effects which are not intended. All I seek is the enforcement of Zimbabwe's constitution.
Is it legal not to have an MP in a constituency? Maybe I'll ask it differently. Is it legal?
Not to have an MP?
Yes.
Yes, if there's a vacancy, there's a vacancy.
It should be filled, right? Legal, it should be filled. Maintaining that vacancy is illegal in its own, is it not?
It should be filled within the prescribed time.
If it's not filled,
let's go back to Parliament and find out how they would have dealt with it. Because at the end of the day, the legislative arm of government is Parliament. Look, this is what happened. The president, by oversight or whatever happened in his support offices, the president failed to proclaim by-elections. And the constitution says time is up.
But so he is sworn to follow the constitution. Is he not?
I'm not here to answer for the president of this country.
But as a lawyer, we're talking legally. I'm not talking about the president as in Emerson Mnangagwa. But when the president takes office, he takes an oath of office to defend the constitution and abide by it. Is it not? And he actually says, so help me God.
That is why there are courts. That is why there is the constitutional court. To ensure that in the event that the president has failed, or indeed any public officer has failed to uphold the constitution, citizens become the last stakeholders. Any citizen can approach the constitutional court. And so lo and behold, public officer so and so has failed to uphold the constitution. And essentially that's the role that I'm playing. If anything, I am surprised that I have to travel all the way from Gokwe to challenge or to file this application when there are 2 or so million Zimbabweans in Harare who are close to the constitutional doorstep.
At one point, Justice Chigumba said once the president proclaims an election, only an earthquake can stop it. Do you think you're an earthquake?
I'm definitely not an earthquake. But I do have confidence in courts of justice. I have absolute confidence in the courts of justice. If I am correct, the courts will stand with me. If I am wrong, the courts will also correct me.
Let's say in the event that you are right, what would be your view of the president and those who have advised him that elections can be substituted, can be stopped by a statutory instrument?
In my imagination, being president is a very onerous task. I don't think you could personally blame him for failing to abide by the constitution, because there are several officers, I want to imagine, under him whose duties are to advise him and raise his attention to these issues. So yeah, for those people, I think they failed in their duties.
And you would not put any blame on the president? Why? Is it the rational disputation that comes with the MDCT?
Look, there's no need for excitement and sensationalism. Let's be sober. Would the president be able to read the constitution every day? I don't think so. He depends on law officers to do that for him. So if they didn't do it, yes, it could be an error of omission. It is very possible. Why would we nail him because he had one oversight?
This is not one. It would be two. Failing to proclaim within 90 days and legally proclaiming the elections after 90 days.
Yeah, so to speak, you may break them into two. But it is essentially one omission. In my view, yes. It is essentially one omission.
But, Mr. Sengweni, don't you have a moral dilemma here? Don't you have a moral dilemma to say you were quiet when the first wrong was being done? You're only speaking on the second wrong. And does that make you legitimately a person who wants constitutionalism or who wants to deny people an opportunity to have a representation?
I have already said that I think the opportunity you're talking about is just the excitement of campaigning and going to vote, which in my view does not benefit the people anyway. But to answer your question, I challenged the breach that I became aware of. And yeah, I went to the Constitutional Court. The other breaches, if any, unfortunately I did not decide to challenge them. It is actually the responsibility of every Zimbabwean to ensure that elected officials or public officers uphold the Constitution. And in my view, I have done my duty. One Zimbabwean, I have challenged one breach. It is up to the rest of Zimbabweans to challenge the other breaches.
So how do we balance this? Because the court is already seized with this matter of the constitutional failure by the president, and it is still sitting on the judgment. And these people who felt that they needed representation went to court, and they are waiting for a judgment. And while it's waiting for that judgment, you have gone to say that these elections should not happen. How do you, as a lawyer, how do you combine and make sure that there's justice for both sides? Because there's a side that says the elections should be held and they should be held now, and they're waiting for a judgment. It's not yet there. And you wanting to stop the elections for those who wanted them.
It's not very good to comment on the work of other lawyers. But I'm struggling to understand how a lawyer could fail to get judgment in such a simple matter. If the lawyer or the Zimbabwean had approached the court, say 5 days or 10 days before the expiration of the 90 days, and approached the court for an agent or on an agent basis, I'm very sure he would have gotten it. Yeah, but like I said, it depends on how that matter was handled by the lawyer who handled it. Yeah, because you appreciate that. Yeah, there are some cases that are filed for political reasons as well, and I believe out there are people who love citing cases whose judgments are pending because they used the wrong procedure. But just blaming the courts or the system is politically expedient. Yes.
I want us to look at as you say that in your application you were challenging the president, but the president does not proclaim elections for council. So that part for council vacancies is left unchallenged.
I think that mistake is now being corrected. The relevant office has been cited.
you amended your application.
Yes.
Why did you make it in the first place?
It was an oversight. You find that elections in Zimbabwe have become, what do you call them? They are held at the same time, for council, for parliament and for the president, right? So yeah, it is very natural to assume that it is the president who proclaims the, yes, so it was an oversight.
What do you hope that the Zimbabwean democratic space will learn from your application?
It will learn that there is no presumption of ignorance on Zimbabweans. It is up to those who are in public space to ensure that the constitution of the country is protected.
If these elections are to go on, if they are to happen, what would you feel?
In my view, it will be very unjust, and it will be a serious negation of the very democracy that you talk about. In my view, where the legitimacy of an election is challenged, naturally that case should be determined before the elections are held, so that it does not appear like there are systems that benefit from delayed justice. That's what I can say. It is not logical that there is a challenge to the legitimacy of an election, and then either the matter is not heard or the judgment is not delivered until the election is held. In my view, it is a serious shortfall on the very democracy that you are talking about. It is prudent that this matter be heard and that judgment be delivered before the 26th of March. That is my view.
The failure or the slowness to file opposing papers from those cited, what does it say to you?
It's not slowness. They have 21 days according to the rules. And I think they are in their third or so day.
In 21 days the elections would have happened.
And that's where legal tactics come in. I assure you that the case will be heard before the 21 days are up. There's a legal way of doing it. It's all there in the law.
And you are going to make sure you do it?
Yes.
Amazing. How do you then compensate those who have been told by law that there's an election on 26 March? They've complied by the law. They've campaigned, they've put their resources in there, only to be stopped on the 11th hour. How do you get justice for them?
Well, in my view, they are looking for a job. If they don't get it, tough. Everyone who is campaigning is basically looking for a job, principally for their own benefit. So if they don't get it and lose a bit of money in the process, tough luck.
Mr. Sengweni, you were once a candidate for Redcliffe constituency.
Yes.
You're doing it for your own benefit.
Principally, that's what it is. If you campaign to go to parliament, principally you want to be an MP, isn't it?
You did not care about the people of Redcliffe? You did not want to represent their interests?
You are in a job. Huh? You are in a job serving or representing the people of Redcliffe. You are getting a salary for representing the people of Redcliffe. Essentially, that's what it is about. Yes.
So, I want to come to you because you speak with confidence there. I'm saying, as you had a job, you were a successful lawyer in Kwekwe.
Yes.
You had a law firm, Sengweni.
Yes.
So you wanted to get into parliament to look for another job when you already had a job.
Yes. Parliament is another job. We have several lawyers who are also in parliament, and I'm very sure they are enjoying both jobs.
But when you were addressing rallies in Khupe, you were not saying that. Were you fooling the people?
No. I don't think I can remember my words at rallies in Khupe in 2008.
I do, because I covered you, and I have gone back to the stories that I have written while you were there, and you were promising that you were going to save them and not yourself, and that you didn't even need the salary from Parliament because you already had a successful offer. Now you are saying something different.
Mr. Journalist, with all due respect, I never said that. It is ridiculous to say that I'm going to Parliament, I will not take salary because whatever.
No, you didn't say
I assure you.
You didn't say you want to take.
Yes.
You said you didn't need it. There's a difference.
Yes.
Yes, you said you didn't need it because you already have a fulfilling job that is well paid.
I didn't need it, but I wanted it. That's English, isn't it? You don't necessarily need everything that you want. I wanted the salary. I wanted the power. I wanted the profile of being an MP. And I believe it has not changed. But at the end of the day, I would not watch a country go for an election that is illegitimate.
Amazing. Now we're just going to take a short break to look at just to hear the voices of the people that we met in Mwonzora before the by-elections were proclaimed, and what they said about how not having councillors represent them has affected service delivery in their wards. And we're also going to hear from those that we spoke to along the campaign trail what they think about the by-elections. We'll be back on studio.
Tambudzika vagari veWard 6. Ward 6 haminoti nyaya yekuti hatina kansela here anotimirira kana kuti chii, asi chemwe ichi kunyange kansela amboripo dambudziko here rakangogara riripo. Saka iyi dai tawanawo rubetsero, nekuti tikatarisa pane inonzira inzira iri kuti yambudza kuenda kune imwe location iriko kumberi, kusara dambudziko rekuti vanhu avo vange vachiita sei, vange vachidarika. Kochiti isusu vachona takagara ipapo tita dambudziko rekuti tine vana. Saka mvura iyi zvayakuita ndezvekuti pari kuzonaya paipai kunoku ndokumadepends kwekuti mvura yese ndokwainonda sei kwainouya, saka iri kutora nesewage yopinda futi nemudzimba dzedu. Saka tatambudzika, dai makwanisa kutibetserawo nekukasika.
Kansela ariko ndingangoti infact kansela kanga aripo kwakanga kuine weMDC uyezve pane kansela vanoitwa vatsuro, kansela weZANU-PF. Saka iye zvino izvi kuri kuitwa zvemaelection hatikuziva kuti zvichadii, zvichafamba sei, ndiani achatimiririra. Tinokumbirawo kuti kana tikanga tavaisa muzvigaro vatimiririre, vapote vachiona dambudziko rakaita sekushayikwa kwemvura. Hatiwane mvura mazuva ese, asi kumhiri kune dzimba nyowani dziri kumusoroko kuYellow City vanowana zuva rega rega mvura, but kunoku pamwe tinoita mazuva mairi tisingawane mvura, pamwe inouya katatu pasvondo. Saka tiri kukumbirawo kuti kana tavavhoterawo ngavatimirirewo vachitionerawo zvichemo zvedu izvi.
Isusu hatitomboziva kuti kansela wedu ndiani kunoku. Hatitomboziva because taive neanonzi Syria, so iye akatombomhanya last week, that's why pakatombogadzirwa. Saka paakatomboya last week akaenda unoona chisengi kuti akaenda unoona Nyamuziwa pakamboitwa ka-action. Then vanouya nepowder, this powder chete wongosvika mwaya. Then 2 days down the line yoflowa futi. Kudhara for the past years taiona fanika since iri right yangu yekuvhota taiona unge zviri right, but as from 2023 inini personal I'm not going. Even vanhu vangu ndotova discourage kuti endai munovhota because hapana zvazviri kubatsira, it doesn't change anything. Vaivepo vacho kudhara taive nainzi mazambani tanga singazvioni, zvaingoita for 1 day, the next day zvoita. Now hatichaziva kuti maeffects acho zviri kufambira papi. Saka zvokuvhota izvi government instead of kugadzirira vanhu mapaipi vari kubhesta since vanhu vari kuti vanhu vawanda mucommunity, pane mari yavari kutambisa vachiendesa zve-electoral whatever. zvitori nani. We've tried it. We've tried. The reason why vana tiri everywhere all over the world is because tanga tichivhota and nothing has been happening. Saka izvezvi vanhu vakungoti, you know what can we do? Tikavhota hapana change chinoitika, tikaita sei hapana chinoitika. And ndamamuchira kuti yes, people can just come out, voita sei, vobatira mari, voita sei, but this area is it's a low, like high-end area. It's not a high-end area. Suma locations, and people can't afford that. We can't even afford a loaf of bread. Saka kuti vanabudisa the only dollar that they have kuti vafixe vega, we can't. They can't. Panokwanisa kuwanikwa family 1 or 2, but kubva uko kuona uko kusvika ukoko pane pachidiwa mari yakaita sei. And community emuno, they can't afford kuti vabudise the 50 cents that they have.
Kansela wedu takati naye, asi pakazoitika ma-recalls ndo pakabuda kansela wedu muofisi. Kakubva ipapo hatina watinoziva kuti tinoenda kunoona ani, kana watingati shadow kansela wedu hatizive kuti ndiani. Saka ndo dambudziko rachaita. Kuvhota kwakakosha, asi hatisi kuona punduso yatiri kuwana kubva mukuvhota, nekuti tiri kuisa vanhu kuti vange vachitimiririra but mangwana hapana chinenge chichibuda. Saka kuti titi kuvhota kwakashata, aiwa tinenge takanganisa. Vanhu ngativhotei, asi vatiri kuzopa basa iri ngavange vachizotorawo basa ratinenge tavaita sei, ratinenge tavavhotera kuti vange vachitiitira. MP pari zvino hatina, because ndiye umwe futi akaita sei ari pamembers akaita ariko iwayo, hatina MP zvekare. Saka amene dambudziko rinokwanisa kupiwa. Ani sichemo chihombe changa tichidesu ndechekuti dai road ino yakwanisa kuzikanwa ofanga zvikuitwa maroads ine iriko ni mazuva ano Devolution fund yekuti maroads ari kugadzirwa. Saka taikumbira kuti dai road ino vaita sei vakwanisa kuionawo kuti bozi yakuenda kunotisvitsa kune rimwe location iri kumberi. Saka dai pakwanisa kuti poya grader rovhura road yedu zvakanaka zvekuti even mvura kana ichinaya tisingatauri edu zvesewage, mvura inouya youngana ipapa pekuti hatitokwanise kumira kuti ufambe kana kune mvura. Saka at least vakauya vakatigadzira road zvekuti mvura chaicho inokwanisa kufamba, neizvozvi zvemasewage tinotenda kuti basa renge rafambwa zvakanaka. Nyaya mariko inoti affecta like ndau zvati kutaura kuti hatizive kuti tinoenda kunoona ani anoenda kunotimiririra. Laki ndezvekuti ini ndiri muMuslim, ndogara pachechi yeMuslim apa. Tine kansela arimo muoffice, asi haasi wekuwadhi yedu inoyi, vanoitwa vajalifi ndevekuwadhi 10. Saka dzimweni dzenguva vanotomboyo vachinamatira panapa, ndipo vanoona kuti tine madisaster atinawo, totombowapawo shoko. Totomboona dzimweni dzenguva vakaenda kunopawo shoko riri kusvika, asi nekuti hakusi kwavo, havagare variko kunoku. Saka dzimweni dzenguva zvichemo zvedu tozvipa ani. Saka nyaya yemariko iri kuti affecta zvakanyanya. Isusu ndo zvatiri kuda kuti kana tichinge tavhotera vanhu ngavadzoke kwatiri tichitaura navo, tichivapa zvichemo zvedu, ende tichikumbira kana tavapa zvichemo zvedu ngavasazvigarire, ngavazviendese kwazvinofanira kuita sei, kwazvinofanira kuenda. Ndo zvatinenge tichinyanya kukumbira izvozvo. Saka isu tiri kukurudzira kuti kuvhota ngativhote, asi vatiri kuvhotera ngavachitiitirawo basa ratinenge takumbira kuti vanotiitira.
Welcome back on this edition of the Free Talk, where we are talking about democracy, elections, constitutionalism, and the rights for people to be represented. And in the studio, my guest is Sengweni, a lawyer and former legal advisor of the MDCT. And in the studio now, Mr. Sengweni, as we close, maybe, do you think that Zimbabwe has a democratic space that we can be proud of as a people?
Well, my view is that we are trying. Yes, democracy, in my view, is not a one-size-fits-all. It will largely depend with circumstances, where you are coming from, where you intend to go as a country. In terms of holding elections, yeah, we are holding them. In terms of campaigning, yes, I think it's commendable. People are campaigning. In terms of the offices or the branches of government that is supposed to serve people, people. Yes, informally we have them. But it's the real representation of people that, in my view, is missing. Right? And in this, I'm not talking as a lawyer because there is no law involved. But my observation is there is very little representation of the people going on in Zimbabwe at the moment. Earlier on, you spoke about MPs and where they reside. And I am privileged to know that most MPs actually move houses when they win parliamentary seats. If it's in Harare, they move, for example, from Chitungwiza to Borodale. Yeah. If it's in Kwekwe, they move from Bizo to Chicago, because it's more comfortable there. There's very little representation of the people going on in Zimbabwe. There's a serious mismatch between what the people expect and what happens on the ground. There are people in Zimbabwe who have voted for an MP who never returned to them after this. Yeah, there are people of Zimbabwe who have voted for an MP who has been so careless that he would then get recalled from parliament unnecessarily. So it is the culture of representing people that is missing in Zimbabwe. I think, in my view, Zimbabwe could benefit by studying and understanding our own societies before the advent of this Western democracy that we talk about. How did Lobengula represent his people? How did Mutapa represent his people? Genuinely represent his people? How did his officers represent their people? I think we will find more representation in our traditional societies than in our modern ones. It is my view that Zimbabwe needs to go back to its old societies, to its traditions. Yes. You see, don't you have an inferiority complex? There is nothing wrong with Nyasimba Mtota. He presided over a successful society, and I believe his people were happier than Zimbabweans today. So are we making progress? Should we just be excited because of the parliament? How many MPs have spoken about the lives of the people they represent? There is sewage in St. Mary's. Have you heard the St. Mary's MP talking about sewage? He doesn't talk about it as if just talking about it is smelling. So in my view, we are just following the British form, but there's no substance in it. That is why I say today that there is no case for these by-elections. There's simply no case. For the common man, there is nothing. Instead, you want to take 23 billion in 1 or 2 days. 23 billion out of the economy towards an election.
Part of that has already been spent.
Yes, but I believe the larger party is waiting for the 26th. And I'm trying to save that.
It can't be. Because the process of elections, ballot papers are expensive. Probably they've already been printed by now.
I believe that printing of ballot papers, sitting of nomination court is a small fraction. Real money will be spent on the day of the election when teams are deployed. And it's usually from Harare. You have Harareans going to administer elections in Mkumbura as if there are no people in Mkumbura. It's a very expensive process. So the day of the election itself is the most regrettable day in the economy of this country, in my view.
What would you say to the people who are out there who are hungry or feel deprived after their members of parliament were recalled?
Does voting on the 26th give them the sadza or the meal? It does not. So they are hungry now. They will be even hungrier on the 27th of March after the election.
I meant hungry in terms of wanting to have representation.
Come on. I don't think, you see, this is the infatuation with the Democrats that I was talking to you about. Huh? You wanted to appear nice when you are compared to pretend. You don't want to remember how your grandfather administered his village. But I believe there is more value in looking backwards than westward.
Maybe just as parting shot, you can look into the camera and maybe send your message to the president who proclaimed elections illegally, to those who want to vote, and to the members of parliament who you have said are the greedy people filled with self-interest and the love of power.
My message to the president is, unfortunately, I think he failed to uphold the constitution, and it is. I'm appealing to him to take a serious listen to my application and seek counsel, so that if indeed he breached the constitution, instead of filing a notice of opposition, perhaps he could consent to judgment. To Zimbabweans at large, I would want to say that there is more sense in them going to work in their fields than going to vote on the 26th of March. There is more sense in them going to their market stores. There is more sense for them going to their market or selling places on the streets than going to vote for an MP who shall be out of parliament in the next 16 or less months. I believe that if Zimbabweans are really hungry for a vote, they can wait for 2023. It's only a year away now. To government, I would want to say, is it not perhaps time that we amend our constitution to do away with the arms of government which are good in form but are failing to deliver on the ground? Is it not perhaps time that we change the ways we choose our MPs and our councillors, for example? Why is it that our councils are failing to perform? Is it not because of the caliber of people that we are choosing? Can we not amend the law, improve the law, so that we don't make people vote for useless people who are not able to deliver service to them? Yes, to the MPs, those who are fortunate enough to have been elected or are going to be elected as MPs, I will say, guys, it is time that you really represent the people. Can you do better than you have done so far? Because in my view, most of our MPs are not doing anything for the people of this country. Most regard the parliament just as a source of income, in my view.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sengweni, for being my guest here on the Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation. Now, our values on this program are that the people of Zimbabwe must speak for themselves, must be heard, regardless of their political, tribal, or racial, group. Come as you are, be heard. And we also encourage the people of Zimbabwe to participate in all democratic processes in this country. Register to vote. Vote and decide who should make fundamental decisions on how your taxpayers' money is used, how your tariffs and rates are used at local authority. This is the Free Talk with me, your host, as usual, Dara Blessed Mhlanga, having had a wonderful chat with Tapera Sengweni, the lawyer and litigant in the Constitutional Court case that seeks to bar and stop the by-elections March 26. Will Zimbabwe march to March 26? Or the march will be halted before March 26? Thank you very much. Until next time, take care.